Welcome back to another great learning video. In this video, we're going to look into the authentication vulnerabilities. Authentication is the most common feature that you will find in most applications, since it's what we interact with for us to get into most of the features that the application has. We are going to look into a lab on how faulty authentication features can be exploited by users, malicious users. So what is authentication? Authentication is the process of verifying identity of a user or a client. Since once creating a website, it's potentially exposed to anyone who is connected to the internet. We need a way of identifying or allowing a certain number of users into our applications, and this is done through authentication. There are different types of authentication, where one is using something that could be a password, a security question, or something you have. Some people use mobile phones or security tokens to do authentication. This is where you provide something you have or something to verify, so that the application can verify that, yeah, this is who says it is, and something that you are. This could be a biometric fingerprints. This is permanent. This is more often today in the mobile world, in our phones. So there's a difference between authentication and authorization. Authentication is identifying or verifying you are who you claim to be. This could be through a username and password, while authorization, once you are authenticated into the application, now authorization is determining if you have the authority or you are allowed to do certain things in our application. So authorization is more of permissions that you have to achieve certain features or certain things in our applications. Authentication vulnerabilities will mostly arise due to lack of weakness or lack of brute force protection against these brute force attacks, or some logic flaws where developers give access to some resources without authentication, and the impact can vary depending on the feature or how an attacker is able to get into our applications. So here we're going to solve a simple two-factor authentication. We all know two-factor authentication. This is like having a second padlock on our second lock on our door, where we verify who, even after giving us or providing us with your username and password, we really need to know if it's true you are the real person with this, and you are sent an OTP or a second verification process, where once you verify that, you are able to get into the application. So this lab two-factor can be bypassed. So it's possible to bypass two-factor. You have already obtained a valid username, as we said. So two-factor authentication will mostly help us to avoid once your user's password and username are compromised. An attacker might not be able to get into the system because of the two-factor authentication, since they will be able to have another validation process where we send them a token or a verification URL, where they have to click on that, and in case they don't have access to your email or the phone number that this 2FA is to be sent, then they are not able to get into your account. So it's another added layer of protection, but this lab is vulnerable to two-factor authentication bypass. So you have already obtained a valid username and password but do not have access to the verification code, and we are given credentials. We have our credentials and we have the victim's credentials. So we are going to start the lab. Just see how the best idea is to first see how the features work, how this two-factor authentication feature is implemented. Once you learn how it is implemented, you're able to see how you can exploit it or different ways you can play around with it. So I'll copy this to our Bab suite, and we have some credentials provided here. Let's log in using these credentials. So after providing the credentials, you see we are told to enter 4-digit security code. So this is two-factor authentication. The system is trying to verify that, yeah, you say the one you claim to be. We have an email client where our 2FA will be sent, and it is your security code is 0575 0575, and once you provide that, you are allowed to see the website features where you can see your account, and you can learn from that there is an endpoint, my account, that we get after providing our OTP. Having learned that and having looked at our API, our request through Bab Suite, you have an idea of how these features work. So let's log out and try. Since we have the victim's username and password, and we are trying to bypass the two-factor authentication, since we don't have the the security code, the 4-digit security code at this point, there are different ways we can try to get this. We can try to brute force and see if we can be able to crack this, and this can be done using the, let's try 1 2 3 4. And we note that once we do that, we are redirected to the one invalid code. We are redirected back to our login page, which suggests brute forcing this might be hard for us. So we might want to think another approach to this. And once we log in, remember we did see an endpoint, my account, and since we are logged in, we can try to bypass the authentication by accessing the my account directly without providing the OTP, and we are able to log in as Carlos. This is well gets us into the dashboard of Carlos just by providing our endpoint that we did see uh, after verifying our token. We were able to be logged in into this. Yeah, we were able to be redirected into my account. So that suggested that my account is an endpoint that is reachable on authentication, and since we are authenticated, only we need to bypass the OTP. So that's it for this video. Hope this was informative and helpful. Cheers.